Hello, everyone. I'm Renee Barabo, the Practical Shaman, and we have a great show for you today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
So, today we're going to talk about a very important topic. And it's something that's really near and dear to my heart because there was a time in my life where I would go to psychics like weekly to get an answer because I wanted a different outcome. Until finally one day I realized that they were putting into the energy field an outcome that may or may not have been in my highest and best good because the information they were pulling down may or may have been accurate, but I might have heard it in a way that sent me on a tailspin and going into a direction that wasn't in my, that I could have had options. And so we thought we'd talk about that. Like, how do you deliver news? How do you receive news? And, what do you do with that news once you get it?
Yeah, what happened for me, and this isn't the first time it's happened, but there's I don't know when the show is playing, but we all know how much energy has been put into the eclipse and how much information has been put out in spiritual communities about the eclipse. And I was really amazed because I don't know how I got on everybody's list, but I've gotten like over 20 emails on what this eclipse is or was supposed to be about. Again, I don't know when the show is playing. And everybody actually said something different. So that really confused me and threw me back into my own practices and realized I should not be listening to any of this. But there was this one person who I had done an astrological reading with because I heard he had a particular gift for a particular issue. And he was really good, but he sent out an email about the eclipse, and he actually wrote in his email, anybody who has this in their chart at this particular degree will absolutely, positively, and the loss, I'm not even going to say it out loud, the loss was horrific. And it wasn't, it might be, or in order to try and stop this from happening, it was a proclamation. If you have this in your chart, this is going to happen to you. And so, in talking about shamans or gardeners of energy, which is all I ever talk about anymore, what seed did he just plant? I mean, you plant a seed and it's going to grow. And we did a show on the power of words years ago. And I brought up Larry Dossey's amazing work of how he talked about the power of words. And in the very first book that he wrote really amazing books. Everybody should read the books that he wrote. His wisdom was just amazing. And he was a very well-known doctor, and he wrote a book about the power of words and diagnoses. And does a client die in 2 weeks because their doctor told them they were going to die in 2 weeks, or because they were actually going to die in 2 weeks? That's a question nobody can ever answer. But we do know uh, how we absorb information that's given to us from other people. We're really good at giving our power away to other people. And so, my last point on this is, I I was at a conference for doctors, and I did an exercise on the power of words, and it's a really easy exercise to do without people knowing about shamanism. I would just have people imagine themselves going to a beautiful place in nature and imagine themselves saying certain words and watching the energy of that word coming up and what that energy was going to manifest. And so I led an exercise of asking all these doctors and nurses to look at the energy behind their diagnoses that they're giving their patients. And I can say 100% of my group went into complete PTSD in what they did.
Yeah, I think about that. When I was first learning to do soul card readings, or do shamanic healings, just because I saw it, I would tell you. And over the years, I had to really refine that the damage that I did. And, probably some of it, if you're out there listening, you might not even listen to me anymore, but because of the things that I might have come out my mouth, but that I realized that, people took that to heart, and I had to really refine. So now when I shuffle up a card and I see, like lots of obstacles in the way, I'll keep pulling cards until I can find the right card that I can soften that whole thing to see, like, well, what's the gift? What's the blessing? How do we move through this? And I never mention, because usually I'm doing it, you're not seeing the cards, and I wait until I get that good card to, like, how to weave that back in, because we do pull in futures for people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I don't even know, like I said, like somebody wrote me the other day on my wind clan wall and said, you told me I was going to be singing in the band one day. And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't usually remember what I say afterwards, but she had, I opened up, she sent me their tune, and I opened it up, and the harmony was just, I must have been hearing the harmony of her singing all those years ago that was going to show up these, 10 years later, but she's singing and she's found her. I think more what I saw is that she was going to find her voice. And so she's found a voice, and it's come across in this music, and you might want to go hear it over in the Wind Clan, because they're creating some really beautiful music. And, and how long she got there to get there was through a lot of spiritual work. So, but I don't want to say that sometimes we don't see things that we really need to share with people. Like someone once said, you might have to take a medicine once in your life. I was telling Sandra, after the blood report I just got, I could see that it might be coming sooner rather than later.
Right. Yeah. I studied tarot with Angelise Arian, and I know a lot of people didn't respect how she taught tarot, but I loved how she taught tarot. We were both Capricorns. We both had the same tarot numbers, and so she was just an amazing mentor to me, So I took her beginning class on tarot, I think 10 times. She'd see me walk into the class, and her eyes would be, but then she'd be watching me. I would just shake my head throughout the whole entire class, because every class I got something deeper, and she saw me getting that. Anyway, she could do a full Celtic Cross tarot reading, and you could get every negative card. She would call it problematic. She never used the word negative, problematic. And if you got every negative problematic card in this entire reading, you left thinking that your life was the best life ever, because she reframed everything as opportunity. Instead of you're going to suffer from, you have an opportunity to work through. You have an opportunity to now step onto a different path. So everything that would be seen as negative, she didn't lie. She just reframed it from a curse to an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really different. And that's really different. And then I was sharing with Renee when we were talking about this topic before we started that I had an astrology reading with somebody in 1999 who told me that I should be working on this right now in 1999 because I was going to need it now in my life, and I didn't do it. And so there's a difference between somebody planting a seed of this terrible thing is definitely going to happen to you. And what do you do with that? There's no room to the difference of you have an opportunity to make a big change in your life to there's something coming up in your life, and here are the steps so that it's going to be a good experience instead of a tough experience for you. And that's a real skill. And in my soul retrieval workshops, oh my God, I'm like a mother bear. Um, you have to tell a healing story to clients.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about lying to them. It's about you just brought back their vital soul. You want them being at home. You don't want to poison the experience. And so many practitioners poison the experience, and then it's so impossible to fix. I've had so many clients where people planted these unbelievable, horrific seeds, and I've worked so hard to try and turn it around. And for some of them, I just can't. Once a person says something with so much passion and so much strength, that seed just goes in, and some seeds cannot be taken out.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, I know for me, when I was practicing learning these techniques, I made some mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard about them like 10 years later. Somebody wrote and said, you blah, 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 blah. And there's just, like you said, there's just no way to go back and fix that. And the only hope for that is that maybe there was some karmic agreement beforehand that was my role in that person's life. I don't know, because obviously it set them on a healing path that and didn't include me in the future. But I did learn, and I learned how to, really be more thoughtful in my responses and what I saw, and making sure that what I brought back wasn't sorcery, but it was, like you said, a useful healing experience for people.
Right.
So we
It's
forget that.
Yeah, we have so much fear and so much anxiety. And my feeling is like with soul retrieval, you lost a part because of a trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But do you want to be left with leaving that you have a soul that was returned and it's in trauma, which souls don't have a personality. So how did they return in trauma? They're just vital energy. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have a personality. Or would you rather your clients walk out saying, hearing some really tough things happen to you, and you lost a piece of your soul in order to protect yourself? It was a very protective mechanism. And that soul held the gift of being a dreamer, being the most creative person on the planet, knowing how to love. And that's what I brought back for you. I mean, there's such a difference to
Mm-hmm.
had a terrible life and I brought you back all that terrible stuff, and I actually blew into you all that terrible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, I can't tell you how many practitioners do that with soul retrieval. And I bring back this is what you've been missing all this time. This
Mm-hmm.
amazing beautiful energy that holds these qualities that you've been missing your whole entire life, and they're back. And
Mm-hmm.
so then we work on how do we make that happen, you know? Um, so there's a real difference of
Mm-hmm.
how we can be in service, a real difference. We can scare people, or we can inspire people.
Inspire. I had many of those jagged soul retrievals you're talking about. Like there was a part that was kept being brought back, like that was out of sync. You know, at one point I thought, like, banish you to the unknown. We don't need this part. And then one of your students did this beautiful soul retrieval where they brought this part back, and it was magically inspired to be part of the team instead of this, this battling part that just every time it brought back was cause, Harry Carey in my life. And everything started to change after that.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, two clients that were really not my clients quit. It was it was almost like instantaneously I was put into a different place in my life, and it was a magical experience. So I think that that's really an important distinction to know, and it taught me this is how I want to work with people.
Right, right. Yeah, I guess because I spent so much of my life suicidal, if I'm going to see somebody, somebody needs to tell me why I should stay here. You know? And so that's my philosophy when I see people is everybody's suffering so much.
Mm-hmm.
Give them some energy to go on. Don't plant seeds where they're going to go home and say, oh, now I'm just going to put the covers over my head. There's no hope in my life.
Mm.
So there's a way to communicate through words about challenges that you might face without planting seeds that they're actually going to happen, but giving people ways to work with it so that you have the opportunity to change and to inspire people with your words of we don't know what changes this eclipse is bringing, but if you go out and perform a ceremony and just say that you're in service to the planet, to earth, air, water, fire, the sun, I think that that's a beautiful thing to do as far as any sacred event coming up is just giving thanks, just
Mm-hmm.
giving thanks because we're always, we want the trees to take our pain. We want the plants to take our pain. We want every eclipse to take our pain. We want every full moon to take our pain. We want every new moon to take our pain. And I know that I'm always leading these ceremonies to release your pain. But at what time, at what point do you just say thank you and
Right.
just stop asking? Just say thank you.
I think that's a great place to stop. We're just going to say thank you, um, and I think that there's not much more to say other than subscribe, like our page, contribute to the conversation. Because one thing I don't do in the group is I'm one of the ones who approves comments, and when it starts out with a directive, I always just delete. When it starts out with a more positive inspiration, I tend to read it. Sometimes I have to go investigate it, but there's more of a chance that when you're offering joy into the world and a better perspective and how people can actually visualize something new in their lives, that we approve it. So that's all about that.
And we have uh, given new life and new energy to the Shamans Cave podcast. And that's a Facebook page where we show clips of past and present shows. and people comment and speak about it and ask questions and engage more. So I hope that you'll join us on the Shaman's Cave podcast, but to always remember to subscribe and like us on Shamans TV.